big trouble if that wasn't working. Okay, so hello everyone, my name's Deb. I'm going to be doing your pelican feed today. It doesn't take very long, 10-15 minutes, so if you bear with me, that would be wonderful. What I'm going to do is feed the pelicans and then talk a little bit about them and give you some information about them. If you're interested in asking any questions that I may not have answered, come and see me afterwards while I pack up a little bit. But there's a couple of things I do need to say first before we go too far. One is that we've been doing this on behalf of the San Remo Fishermen's Co-op, which is at the end of the pier up there, for over 20 years. They're the guys who provide the fish for the birds, and so we'd love you to be able to support the birds by supporting them. And you can buy fish and chips and burgers and things up there, but you can also get fresh fish and lobsters and all that type of thing. So if you're interested in helping us support the birds, then yes, certainly go over there and get some lunch. Another thing is I've also put out some little donation bins. If you've got any of that annoying change rattling around in your pocket, we're very happy to relieve you of that. That money goes also towards the fish for the birds, but their health care as well. There isn't anyone that monitors the health of the birds, and so when they come in, we're lucky enough to be able to have a group of wildlife carers, and we're able to get them and take them when they need help. We don't touch them unless it's really, really, urgent. But anyway, the vets will look after them for free, but the money that we raise also helps pay for the actual medications and things that they need. So if you're interested in helping, that's another way you can help. And one last way, I've got some great little pelican pins here that I've got for sale afterwards. They're $5 each, and what we're trying to do is raise money to buy some GPS trackers and some bands for the birds, because we want to learn more about our local birds around here, whether they stay, whether they go, all that type of thing. And the GPS trackers are pretty expensive, so if you're interested, that money goes all towards them. So come and see me afterwards. I'll remind you just before I'm finished. So I better give them a little bit more because they do get a little bit antsy. Now, in Australia, there's only one species of pelican, and that's these guys. Worldwide, there are 7 species. So these guys are, we think, the prettiest species in the world. I'm just going to show you what I'm feeding them today. So what they are is flathead frames. They're the ones that have been filleted and they're for sale, and they all want one. You can sort of see, I'm holding up the spikes on the back of the flathead there. They're very, very sharp. They can even go through these really thick gloves. So you'll notice that I'm feeding them face first, like that. And the reason for that is obvious, because those spikes will get stuck going down if it went down tail first. Now the birds obviously know this, and that pouch is very, very sensitive. So what happens is, if it goes down the wrong way, or it goes in the wrong way, no, there's only one fish in that hand, thank you. If it goes in the wrong way, they will actually get it down their neck and they'll jiggle their neck around like that until it moves around the right way. Now the other way they do it is they actually have that pouch there, and that pouch can scoop up to 13 litres of water. So what they do is, if they still need to get it to move around, they'll go out into the water, they'll scoop up the water and move the fish around that way, so they can feel what way around that fish is. Very, very sensitive. Some of them are a little bit bossy. Yeah, but that's okay. If you just sit still, you'll be right. So with the food that we're feeding them, we know it's not enough to sustain them. So a lot of people worry, oh, you're making them reliant on people. We're not. The food that we feed them is nowhere near enough to sustain them, and we know that because we get different amounts of pelicans every day. Sometimes we'll get 1 pelican, sometimes we'll get 90. So if they needed this food, they would all be here every day, day in, day out. That's not the way it is. I like to think of it, pelicans are, they're very opportunistic feeders. They'll steal food off fishermen, they'll get an easy feed. So I like to think that they think they'll come and see Deb for their macas today. Just a nice easy feed, so, and that's all it is. It's been happening for over, since the 1940s when the Fishermen's Co-op started, and the fishermen used to empty out their dead bits in the water and the pelicans would eat them then. when I'm feeding them this way, I'm actually looking down their throats at the same time. And I'm looking to see that they look okay, they look healthy. What could happen when they're not very well is they can get sea lice growing down their throats on the inside of the pouches. So when their immune system's compromised, you get a lot of sea lice, overburden of sea lice. And sometimes you can't tell if a bird's injured or sick. Most times we can see the fishing line, or we can see cuts and tears or broken legs or whatever. But sometimes it might be under a wing or under the feathers and you can't see it, and then that'll come up in the overburden of lice in their mouth. So it's good. They're lucky we do this, because we have saved a lot of birds from a pretty horrible death. Just a couple of weeks ago I had to catch a juvenile that had a fishing line wrapped around his legs, and he had a hook in a hip and a hook in a foot. And so he was running like he had his undies around his ankles, which sounds funny, but extremely dangerous for the birds, because he couldn't get enough speed up to get a good flight off. So he was very, very vulnerable to predators. So we caught him, took him over the bridge to the vets. They fixed him up, put him on antibiotics. He was at the nature park for a few days, and then they released him and all good. But he would have had a horrible death. One at a time, thank you. Now these are wild animals, so when you see wild animals anywhere, by Australian law you're not supposed to disturb them or try to touch them or anything like that. So if you do see the birds and animals on the beaches, on the shores, anywhere, by all means take pictures and have a look at them, but please try not to disturb them. Now, with our one species of pelican in Australia, their actual scientific name is Pelicanus conspiculatus, and the conspiculatus stands for spectacled pelican. So of course when I say that, the first place you look is around their eyes. I'll try and move down a little bit more. And around their eyes they've got yellow glasses on, haven't they? So some of them are a dark yellow, and some are a lighter yellow, and some are even a pale blue. And so what we know that is the older ones have the darker yellow eyes and the younger ones have paler, and the younger they are, the more pale they are. Another way we can tell difference in ages is the colour of the feathers on their backs. So you can see that one up there, he's got the brown mottley feathers, and all the others have got a beautiful black feather, so they're older and he's younger. And the other thing is the colour of their legs. Yes, he's quite big, so I can probably say he's a boy, but unless he had a blood test, I couldn't be 100% sure. So yeah, the other way is the colour of their legs. So if you look at their legs are a dark grey, but he's got pinky legs that are a very pale grey. So the three things can tell us that that's a younger bird. So there you go. So that's quite a big bird. And that's why he's kind of a bit more game than the others too, I think, because he is a young bird. What I'm going to do, I told you about that pouch before. I'm going to throw a few fish up and I'll throw it around so different ones of you can see. No, don't be cheeky. Just before they catch it, have a look when they open that beak. That bottom part pouch is out. They scoop out a bit. It's got a bit of like a hinge in it, just so you can see. It's quite interesting. Also have a look where they're looking. Sometimes we get some really graphic, you can see it just before they catch that fish. That is like a scoop. But where else, what are they doing also? When I do that, they're all looking up, aren't they? And that's how we catch them when we need to catch them. So we just throw a few fish up, and while they're looking up, we have to jump on them at the back. Obviously not right on them, but you know, we catch them that way. And with their long beaks, they can't really turn around and get us, so it's not too bad. Now, pelicans are very big birds, and they've got the biggest beak in the bird kingdom. Their beak can grow up to half a kilometre, half a metre long. And the girl's usually about 47 centimetres, so there's not a huge difference in size between, the girls are smaller, but again, you don't know the difference in ages to tell who's a girl and who's a boy. So to me, lucky they can tell. Otherwise we might be in a bit of trouble. Well, they might be in a bit of trouble. But no, we can't tell because they all do look pretty much the same. Now with our birds, our guys breed on Mud Island, or that's one of the breeding colonies. Now it's in Port Phillip Bay and it's in about the direction of that transmission tower over there, so it's quite a way away. And the breeding season is between November and March every year. Now around about August they start displaying their breeding colours, and so their beak goes a brilliant blue and pink, and that pouch bit, there's a line, if you have a look you can just see that line sort of down the middle of the pouch. Well, when they go into breeding colours, that goes a really dark blue, and it's absolutely beautiful. When they open the pouch, inside it's like a salmon pink colour, and it's really, really pretty. So anyway, what they do is they will have between 2 to 4 eggs every year, but only one baby survives, and that's okay. There's lots of pelicans, so it's the strongest one. And that's why the pelicans are such a successful breed as well. One, because they're opportunistic feeders, but two, because they only bring up one baby at a time. Now, they have found fossils up to 40,000 years old in the pelicans, so very successful prehistoric breed. Now, with their babies, the babies talk to the parents from within inside the egg, and the parents both incubate the eggs. And so the babies will be in there and go, Dad, Dad, get off, it's hot. Or Mum, Mum, get back on, it's cold. So that's, they talk to each other through the eggs. And the parents and the babies learn their vocalisations then. So then when the babies hatch, they already sort of can talk to each other. That deep grunting sound is the only noise the big ones make. They don't make any other sort of squeaky tweet or anything like that. So anyway, what happens is, our parents, they are working parents, a lot like a lot of us. And what did you do with your kids when you had to go to work, mums? I know I had to put mine into childcare. So these guys, they do the same thing. After 2 weeks old, the babies toddle off into a big colony, and they call it a creche, and that's where they stay until they fledge. So the parents fly off, they go out, get the food all day, come back, find the baby, and they feed the baby. There's, by that stage, only the one baby left. Now, you sort of think, well, how can they find their baby out of hundreds of baby pelicans? Well, that little thing around their eye, when they're first hatched, is a mottily, spotty pattern. And every single one of them is different. It's unique, just like a zebra. And the birds can see their own baby's eye pattern from up in the air and zone in on it. Down they go and feed that baby. And that's pretty spectacular, I think. Now, the fact that these birds are big is very misleading, because a lot of people think that they'd also be quite heavy, but they're not. They usually only weigh between 6 kilos to 8 kilos, which is not much at all when you think about it. Now, part of the reason that they're so light is because their skeleton is like honeycomb. The skeleton only takes up 10% of their body weight. And the other thing is, the reason that they look so big and puffy is they've got lots of little air bubbles under their feathers and their skin. And those air bubbles are just like bubble wrap, and it keeps them buoyant when they're fishing. And the one that I had to catch the other week, it was really strange. When I caught it, it just felt like I had a big pillow full of feathers and bubble wrap in my hands. It just felt really weird, you know, it was so light. And then when you touch them, you can hear those bubbles crackling. Really, really strange. So yeah, that keeps them buoyant, but it also gives them their size. Now, because they're so light, and they do have a 2.5 metre wingspan, they can fly really, really high. So they've been known to fly as high as 3 kilometres high, which I'm told is where planes fly. And also they can stay for up to 24 hours without stopping. So they just glide around on that huge wingspan, and if any of you are lucky enough to see them coming in before, they just look magnificent when they're gliding down. So they do that, and they change direction, with a couple of little flaps if they want to go somewhere else. And they just glide around. Now, pelicans don't migrate like other birds. Not like our short-tailed shearwaters at the moment that are leaving, so I'll just quickly mention that. At night, please go really slow on our roads. At the moment, our baby short-tailed shearwaters are on their way to the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. And quite often they land on the road and they think it's water because the lights and the darkness, it confuses them, and then they just get run over, and we've had horrible massacres over the years. So yeah, if you can keep an eye out for that, that would be fantastic. So anyway, these guys don't migrate, but they do follow food sources. So if there's not a lot of food around, there's a couple of options for them. One is, as I said, they'll steal food off other birds. They will actually eat seagulls, don't tell them. Yeah. And we have had a few sessions where we've had some bits of fish we've thrown up, the seagulls come to get it, then the pelican's got the seagull. Thank goodness let it go. But yeah, I have seen it and it's not nice. So yeah, they will follow food sources. So if we ran out a lot of food here, they would find somewhere else to go. Now pelicans can live for up to 25 years in the wild. Probably even longer in captivity, I'm not sure. We don't really get told that. So I've only got a couple of fish left. I think I've told you I didn't tell you about that hook on the end of the beak. I will tell you that. That little yellow hook on the end of the beak is quite sharp. It's like a sharp fingernail. Now that's their tool they use. Obviously they don't have hands and fingers, so they need something. And they use that for a couple of things. One is to build their nest. Now pelicans aren't really care much about their nest, not like a lot of other birds spend months building a nest. Pelican will just sit down, scrape a bit of stuff around, and he's happy with that, so that's all right.